John had absolutely nothing. Well, that's not entirely true. He had his uncle, a small farm in the village, and a brain that worked like a calculator on steroids. His parents? Gone. His money? Non-existent. His future? Looking about as bright as a broken flashlight. But here's the thing about John. The boy was smart. Not just, oh, he's clever, smart. We're talking got into university on his first try to study architecture, while everyone else was crying over their rejection letters. Kind of smart. When John arrived on campus, he stood out like a diamond in a pile of rocks. Except this diamond was wearing clothes that had seen better days and shoes that were held together by prayer and determination. While other students bragged about their parents' cars and houses, John bragged about, well, nothing. He just quietly got straight A's in every single class. How does he do it? Students whispered in the hallways. I heard he studies by candlelight because his uncle can't afford electricity, another would say. Doesn't matter. Did you see his test scores? The lecturers want to frame them. John didn't just study for himself. Oh no, this boy was out here running free tutorial sessions like he was being paid. Spoiler alert, he wasn't. Students would crowd around him in the library, desperately scribbling notes as he explained complex architectural concepts like he was talking about the weather. So you see, John would say, pointing at a diagram, if you don't calculate the load-bearing capacity correctly, your building will fold like a house of cards. And nobody wants to be the architect whose building goes oops. The students would laugh, finally understanding something that had confused them for weeks. John survived on campus by doing odd jobs. He photocopied materials for students. He helped lecturers organize their notes. He did assignments for classmates who paid him. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept food in his stomach and hope in his heart. Sandra was everything John was not. Rich? Check beautiful. Double check. Smart? Well, let's just say her brain was on permanent vacation. Her father owned a massive construction company. Her sister was studying engineering. And Sandra? Sandra was supposed to study architecture because Daddy said so. The problem was that Sandra would rather have been literally anywhere else doing literally anything else. I don't understand why I have to do this, Sandra would complain to her friends, flipping her perfectly styled hair. I have money. Why do I need a degree? Because your father said you needed to inherit the company, remember? Her friend would remind her. Sandra would roll her eyes so hard you could practically hear them. Ugh, fine. But I'm not happy about it, and she wasn't. Her grades were a disaster, a beautiful, expensive disaster. She was failing so badly that even her professors felt sorry for her. Almost. One day, Sandra heard students talking about some genius boy who gave free tutorials. Her ears perked up like a cat hearing a can opener. Free? She asked. Where is this magical genius person? That's how Sandra found herself standing in front of John one afternoon, batting her eyelashes and putting on her sweetest voice. Hi, she said, smiling like she'd just discovered sunshine. I heard you give tutorials. I'm Sandra, and I'm struggling. Could you help me? I'll pay you. John looked up from his notes. His heart did a little flip. This girl was gorgeous, like, is she even real? Gorgeous. And she was asking him for help? Yes, I can help you, John stammered. And just like that, John became Sandra's private tutor. She paid him, which helped him survive. And in return, he helped her understand architecture, which stopped her from failing out of university completely. But something else happened during those study sessions, something neither of them planned. They became friends. Then they became more than friends. Sandra, despite being a spoiled rich girl, was funny. She made John laugh. She brought him snacks during study sessions. She actually seemed interested in his life, his dreams, his struggles. You're going to be an amazing architect one day, she told him once, her eyes sincere. I can feel it. John felt his heart swell. You really think so? I know so, Sandra said, squeezing his hand. For John, falling in love with Sandra was like falling off a cliff. Sudden, terrifying, and absolutely unstoppable. For Sandra, John was different from every other boy she'd met. He didn't care about her money. He didn't want to use her. He just liked her, the real her. Will you be my girlfriend? John asked one evening, his voice shaking. Sandra's face lit up like a Christmas tree. Yes, of course, yes. And that's how the poorest boy on campus started dating the richest girl. Cue the fairy tale music, right? Wrong. Everything was perfect. John and Sandra were that couple everyone talked about. The genius and the beauty, the poor boy and the rich girl, love conquering all, and all that sweet stuff. Then, in their final year, Sandra collapsed during class. Sandra! John shouted, catching her before she hit the floor. Somebody call an ambulance. At the hospital, the news hit like a bomb. Kidney failure. One of Sandra's kidneys had completely given up on life. She needs a transplant, the doctor said gravely. Immediately. Sandra's family scrambled to find a donor. Her sister Betty was tested first. So, Sandra's father asked hopefully, can you donate? Betty crossed her arms and shook her head. No way. If I give her my kidney, I'll have to live with one kidney forever while she has two. That's not fair. Sorry, sis, but no. Betty, their mother gasped. This is your sister. And this is my body, Betty shot back. Find another donor. Their father was too old and had high blood pressure. Their mother wasn't a match. Time was running out, and Sandra was getting weaker by the day. When John heard the news, he didn't even hesitate. He marched straight to the hospital. Test me, he told the doctors. John, you don't have to do this, Sandra whispered from her hospital bed, tears streaming down her face. Yes, I do, John said firmly. I love you. What's the point of having two kidneys if I can't give you one? The test came back. John was a perfect match. Sandra's parents stood in the hospital hallway, stunned. That poor boy is willing to give our daughter his kidney, Sandra's mother whispered. Doesn't change the fact that he's poor, her father muttered. But I suppose we owe him our gratitude. The surgery was successful. John gave Sandra one of his kidneys and saved her life. When Sandra woke up after surgery, the first person she saw was John, sitting beside her bed with a tired smile. Hey, beautiful, he said softly. Welcome back. Sandra burst into tears. You saved me. You actually gave me your kidney. Of course I did, John said, holding her hand. I love you. I'd give you both kidneys if I could, but then we'd both be in trouble. Sandra laughed through her tears. I love you so much. Thank you. Thank you for saving my life. After the surgery, John practically became Sandra's personal nurse. He helped her recover, helped her study for their final exams, made sure she took her medications, and never left her side. They both graduated. John graduated as the best student in the entire architecture department. The university even offered him a full scholarship to study abroad for his master's degree. This is amazing, John, Sandra exclaimed when he told her. You're going to study in another country. This is your dream. But John shook his head. No, I'm not going. What? Why not? Because I want to stay here with you, John said simply. My dream isn't complete without you in it. Sandra's heart melted. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. So John turned down the scholarship. He got a job at a small construction firm as an architect. Sandra got a role as managing director at her father's company. Her salary could buy John's salary 100 times over, but they didn't care. They were in love, and that was all that mattered, right? One evening, John got down on one knee. Sandra, will you marry me? He asked, holding out a simple ring that had cost him 3 months of savings. Yes, Sandra squealed. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. But when Sandra told her parents, the reaction was less enthusiastic. You want to marry that poor boy, her father bellowed, just because he donated a kidney? Yes, Dad. I love him, Sandra shouted back. He saved my life when nobody else would. He's from nothing. He has nothing. You're throwing your life away. I don't care. I'm marrying him. Meanwhile, John's uncle pulled him aside with a worried expression. My son, his uncle said slowly, marrying a girl from that kind of family is like raising a leopard as a pet. One day when it grows too big, it will forget all your kindness and eat you alive. Be careful. But John just smiled. Uncle, they're good people. Sandra loves me. Everything will be fine. The wedding happened a few months later. It was small and simple because that's all John could afford. Sandra's parents attended, but they looked like they were at a funeral instead of a wedding. Still, John and Sandra were happy. They moved into a modest apartment, and life seemed perfect. At first, everything was wonderful. John, being the thoughtful man he was, decided to take care of the house. Sandra was earning way more money and working longer hours, so John figured this was how he could contribute. Every day, he'd come home early and clean the entire apartment until it sparkled. He'd do Sandra's laundry, iron her clothes perfectly, and cook her favorite meals. When she came home from work, the table would be set, dinner would be hot, and a warm bath would be waiting. You're too good to me, Sandra would say, kissing his cheek. You work hard, John would reply. This is the least I can do. Life was peaceful. Life was good. Then Sandra's younger sister Betty got engaged to a rich man, a man from a well-connected family, a man with a last name that opened doors. The engagement party was lavish. Betty couldn't stop talking about her fiancé. His family owns 3 hotels, Betty bragged to Sandra, and he's taking me to Paris for our honeymoon. Where did John take you again? Oh, wait, you didn't have a honeymoon, did you? Sandra forced a smile. We were saving money. How practical, Betty said with fake sweetness. That's so cute. But the real blow came a few weeks later. Sandra's father called her into his office. I'm making Betty the CEO of the company, he announced. Sandra felt like she'd been slapped. What? But that position was supposed to be mine. You've been grooming me for years. That was before you married that nobody, her father said coldly. I can't let you ruin my legacy. If you want your position back, divorce him and marry someone suitable. Then we'll talk. Sandra went home that night fuming. John tried to comfort her, but she pushed him away. Don't touch me, she snapped. Sandra, what's wrong? What's wrong? My father just gave my job to Betty because I married you. John felt his heart sink. I'm sorry. I'll work harder. I'll prove to your father that I'm worthy, I promise. But proving himself wasn't that easy. John was still working at the same small firm, still earning his modest salary. Months passed and nothing changed. At the next family gathering at Sandra's parents' house, things got worse. John, make sure all the glasses are filled. Sandra's father barked at him like he was a servant. John, check if the chairs are arranged properly, Betty's fiancé added with a smirk. John asked the maid if dessert is ready, Sandra's mother said dismissively. Meanwhile, Betty's fiancé sat in the living room with Sandra's father, discussing business deals and investments. They treated him like an equal. They treated John like the help. Sandra watched all of this, and something ugly started growing in her heart. Envy, resentment, bitterness. Betty had everything Sandra thought she would have. The rich husband, the respect, the CEO position, the perfect life. And what did Sandra have? A husband who cooked pasta and cleaned toilets. That night, when John served her favorite dinner, Sandra exploded. What is this? She shouted. It's your favorite pasta, John said, confused. I don't want your stupid pasta. Other men are out there running companies, making real money, and you're here making pasta? Are you serious right now? John stood there shocked. Sandra, you thought wrong. I'm tired of this. Move to the guest room. I don't want you in my bed anymore. And just like that, John became a stranger in his own home. What followed were the darkest months of John's life. Nothing he did was right anymore. When he cooked breakfast, Sandra complained it was too cold. When he ironed her dresses, she said he burned them. When he tried to talk to her, she told him to shut up. "You're such a failure," she'd say casually, like she was commenting on the weather. "Other men are fighting for their wives, building empires. And you're wiping tables like a maid. We don't even have children because I can't stand the thought of touching you." "Sandra, please," John begged one night. "We're married. Can't we try to fix this?" "Fix what?" Sandra shot back. "If you started acting like a real husband instead of a houseboy, maybe I'd let you touch me. But until then, stay in the guest room where you belong." John felt his heart breaking piece by piece. The sweet girl he'd fallen in love with had vanished, replaced by someone cruel and cold. When Betty got pregnant and had her first baby, Sandra's bitterness reached new heights. She watched her parents shower the new grandchild with gifts, a house, everything. "That should have been my child," Sandra muttered. "I should have had the first grandchild. But no, I'm stuck with him." Sandra's parents never visited their home. Not once. It was like John had made their daughter invisible to them. One morning, Sandra slapped John across the face. "What was that for?" John asked, his cheeks stinging. "You didn't make my coffee right," Sandra said flatly. 2 days later, she slapped him again. "I asked you to iron my blue dress. This is the gray one." "I'm sorry, I was making your breakfast and I forgot." Slap! John took it all. He kept hoping things would get better. He remembered his uncle's warning about the leopard and realized too late that the old man had been right. By their 5th anniversary, they were barely speaking. They lived like roommates who hated each other. John slept in the guest room. Sandra slept alone in their bedroom. They were married on paper, but completely divorced in reality. John looked at Sandra sometimes and couldn't recognize her. Where was the girl who'd laughed at his jokes? Who'd held his hand and told him he'd be an amazing architect? Who'd cried tears of joy when he saved her life? That girl was gone, replaced by a bitter, angry woman who blamed him for all her problems. Then things got even worse. Sandra started coming home late, really late, sometimes midnight, sometimes 1 in the morning. She'd smell like expensive perfume that wasn't hers, and alcohol she definitely didn't drink alone. "Where were you?" John asked one night. "None of your business," Sandra snapped. "You can question me when you start earning enough money to run this house. Until then, keep your mouth shut." John saw her smiling at her phone one day, typing messages and giggling. His stomach turned. Then one afternoon, while Sandra's phone was charging on the kitchen counter, a message popped up. "Last night was amazing. I miss you already. Can't wait to see you again." John felt his world crumble. Sandra hadn't come home the night before. She'd said she was working late at the office. When Sandra came home, John confronted her. "Who is he?" John asked quietly. "How dare you go through my phone?" Sandra exploded. "You have no right. You're my wife. Some husband you are. You're a nobody, a poor, useless nobody. You've been nothing but bad luck since I married you. I lost everything because of you. My position, my father's respect, everything." She was screaming now, her face twisted with rage. "I'm done," Sandra continued. "You'll hear from my lawyers. I'm divorcing you. I should have never married you in the first place. Pack your things and get out of my house before I get back from my weekend trip." And then she was gone, the door slamming behind her. 1 hour later, John received the divorce papers via email. He sat on the floor of the guest room and cried. He'd given this woman his kidney. He'd given up his scholarship abroad. He had given her everything he had, and this was how it ended. But John refused to beg. If he'd lost everything else, he could at least keep his dignity. He picked up a pen, signed the divorce papers, packed his few belongings, and left. He went back to the village, back to his uncle, back to the place where he'd started with nothing. When Sandra returned from her weekend trip, she found the apartment empty. John was gone. She smiled. Good riddance. Back in the village, John's uncle welcomed him with open arms. "I told you, my son," his uncle said sadly. "I warned you about that family." "I know, uncle," John said, his voice hollow. I thought she loved me. I thought she was different. Well, now you've seen the truth. This is your home. Stay as long as you need. For a few days, John wallowed in sadness, but then something shifted inside him. He looked at himself in the mirror and made a decision. I'm not going to stay down, he said to his reflection. I'm going to get back up. John started looking for work in the village. That's when he heard about a Chinese company building a massive steel factory nearby. They needed workers. John went to the construction site and found the supervisor. I want to work here, John said. The supervisor looked him up and down. You? You look too soft for this kind of work. I'm not soft. I'm strong. Give me a chance, the supervisor shrugged. Fine. You can carry cement bags and blocks. We'll pay you at the end of each day. That's how John became a construction worker, earning a few thousand naira per day. It was hard physical labor. His hands got calloused. His back ached. But he didn't complain. At least here, John told himself, people treat me with respect. Meanwhile, back in the city, news of John working as a laborer reached Sandra and her family. Look at this, Sandra's father said, showing her photos on his phone. Your ex-husband is carrying cement in some village. This is where he belongs. Sandra glanced at the photos and shrugged. Good for him. She didn't care. She was free now. Soon she'd get her position back at the company. Everything would be perfect. Back at the construction site, John worked hard every single day. He never missed work, never complained, and always did his best. Then one morning, everything changed. A massive storm hit the village at 2 a.m. The wind howled like an angry beast. Rain pounded the earth. When John arrived at the construction site the next morning, he found all the workers gathered around, murmuring anxiously. What happened? John asked. That's when he saw it. Part of the building had collapsed. The storm had destroyed it. A woman's voice cut through the chaos. What is the meaning of this? Everyone turned. A beautiful woman in a sharp business suit was storming toward them, her eyes blazing with fury. This was Ada, the owner's daughter, the managing director of the construction company. How could this happen? Ada shouted at the supervisor and engineer. Do you know how hard I worked to get this contract? And you used cheap materials? You made a terrible design? You're both fired. Get out of my sight. The supervisor and engineer slunk away in shame. Ada stood there fuming, pulling out her phone. I need an architect and an engineer here now. The clients are coming to inspect this week. But there was a problem. Every architect in her company was busy with other projects. The one who was free was on vacation in South Africa with his family. Ada was panicking. John, meanwhile, had been studying the collapsed building. He could see exactly what went wrong. Not enough support pillars. Weak beams. The structure had been doomed from the start. He walked up to Ada carefully. Excuse me, ma'am? Ada whirled around. What? I think I know what the problem is. Ada looked at him like he'd grown a second head. You? Who are you? I'm one of the workers here, but I used to be an architect. I studied architecture in university. I tried to warn the old architect and engineer about this problem, but they told me to mind my business. Ada's eyes narrowed. You studied architecture? Yes, ma'am. And I can see exactly what went wrong. You need 5 additional support pillars here, 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 and here. Plus these 2 beams need reinforcement with concrete and steel rods. Without that, the building will always be unstable. Ada stared at him. Then she went to her car, pulled out the building plans, and spread them on the hood. Show me, she said. John marked the plans with corrections, explaining everything clearly. Ada scanned the updated plans and sent them to her business partner in the United States, an architect she trusted. 20 minutes later, her phone rang. Ada, this is brilliant, her partner said. Whoever made these corrections knows exactly what they're doing. This will fix everything. Ada hung up and looked at John with new respect. What's your name? John, ma'am. John, I just fired the supervisor. I need someone to oversee the construction of those pillars and beams. Can you do it? John couldn't believe his ears. Me? Yes, you're the best option I have right now. I'll pay you 50,000 naira for the job. John's mouth fell open. From earning a few thousand naira a day to 50,000. This was a miracle. I'll do it, John said. Thank you, ma'am. Over the next few days, Ada watched John work. He was incredible. He supervised the workers with skill and patience. He explained what needed to be done clearly. He worked alongside them, never asking anyone to do something he wouldn't do himself. When the Chinese clients arrived, they found the building perfectly repaired. They had no idea anything had gone wrong. Excellent work, they told Ada. Ada smiled, but she knew the truth. It was all because of John. When the project was finally completed months later, John thought his job was over. He'd go back to the village, back to helping his uncle on the farm. Then a letter arrived. Dear John, you are hereby offered a full-time position as supervisor at our main construction company in Lagos. Salary, 800,000 naira per month. Official car and apartment provided. John read the letter 3 times. He couldn't believe it. His uncle hugged him, tears in his eyes. You see, good things come to good people. Go in peace, my son. Go and build your future. In Lagos, John transformed. He worked harder than anyone else. He was honest when other supervisors were stealing materials. He gave accurate project costs when others inflated prices to pocket the difference. He treated workers with respect when others treated them like dirt. Ada noticed. Her father noticed. Everyone noticed. This John, Ada's father said one day, he's different. He's got integrity. I know, Ada replied. He's the best employee we have. John was promoted again and again. His salary increased. He got more responsibilities, bigger projects. And Ada started seeing John differently. At first, she just admired his work ethic. But then she noticed other things. How kind he was to everyone. How he always had a solution to problems. How he never complained. One day, Ada's car broke down in the office parking lot. Need a ride, John offered. That would be wonderful, thank you. As John drove her home, they talked. Really talked. Ada laughed at his jokes. John was surprised by how down-to-earth she was, despite being wealthy. Want to grab coffee sometime? Ada asked when they reached her house. I'd like that, John said, smiling. Coffee turned into dinners. Dinners turned into movies. Movies turned into long conversations where they shared their deepest thoughts. Ada told John about her ex-fiancé who tried to scam her family. John told Ada about his failed marriage. She sounds terrible, Ada said sympathetically. She wasn't always like that, John replied. Money and family pressure changed her. I gave her my kidney, and she still threw me away like garbage. Ada reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Her loss is my gain. A few weeks later, John asked Ada to be his girlfriend. She said yes without hesitation. When Ada took John to meet her father, the old man smiled widely. Finally! A good man. You can spot a good man from a mile away. And this one? He's golden. Sir, I don't have much money to offer your daughter, John said honestly, but I can promise you loyalty and love. Ada's father laughed. Son, that's all she needs. Money we have plenty. A good heart? That's priceless. You have my blessing. They got married within months. No long engagement. No drama. Just 2 people who knew they'd found something real. On their wedding night, John whispered to Ada, "Thank you for seeing me. The real me. Thank you for being someone worth seeing," Ada whispered back. 1 month later, Ada discovered she was pregnant. While John's life was blooming, Sandra's was wilting. The man she'd been seeing, Davis, kept postponing their wedding. First it was, I need to sort some things out. Then it was, let's wait until next year. Are you ever going to marry me? Sandra demanded. Of course, babe. Just be patient. Sandra had no choice. She'd already divorced John. She'd already told everyone Davis was the one. She couldn't back out now without looking like a fool. Finally, Davis agreed to set a wedding date. Sandra's father was thrilled. Now this is a proper son-in-law. Invitations were sent out, the venue was booked, food was ordered, everything was perfect, including the invitation sent to Ada's construction company, their biggest business rival. Sandra had no idea that John now worked there. She had no idea John had become a director. She had no idea John was married to Ada. The wedding day arrived. The venue was stunning. Guests filled the room. Sandra stood at the altar in her expensive wedding dress, waiting for her happily ever after. Then she saw him. John walked into the venue holding a very pregnant Ada's hand. He wore a sharp designer suit that fit him perfectly. He looked confident, happy, successful. Sandra's heart stopped. "Is that John?" her mother whispered. "It can't be," her father muttered. "That boy was a nobody. What is he doing here?" When Ada introduced John to other guests, Sandra heard every word. "This is my husband, John. He's a director at our company. We got married a few months ago and we're expecting twins." Sandra felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. John, a director, married, twins. Throughout the entire wedding ceremony, Sandra couldn't stop staring at John. He looked so different, so confident, so happy. Ida was glowing, her hand resting on her pregnant belly, looking at John with so much love. That should have been me, Sandra thought. I threw away a good man. Even Davis noticed. "Why do you keep staring at that guy?" he hissed. "I'm not," Sandra lied. "You haven't taken your eyes off him all day." "Who is he?" "Nobody. Just someone I used to know." But he wasn't nobody. He was the man who'd given her his kidney, the man who had sacrificed his scholarship for her, the man who'd cooked her favorite meals and drawn her baths, the man who'd loved her with everything he had, and she destroyed him. Or so she thought. Clearly, she hadn't destroyed him at all. She just freed him to find real happiness. Life with Davis was nothing like Sandra imagined. He was cold, distant. They fought constantly. He was always out with his friends while she sat home alone in their big, expensive, empty house. This is what you wanted, Sandra told herself. A rich husband. Success, everything. But she felt hollow inside. There was no warmth, no laughter. No one drew her a bath or cooked her favorite pasta. One night, Sandra couldn't take it anymore. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she'd sworn she'd never call again. "Hello? John speaking." Sandra's voice cracked. "John, it's me, Sandra." There was a pause. "Oh, hi, Sandra. How are you?" "I'm not fine, John," she blurted out. "I made a mistake." "You were perfect. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. Heis, and I threw you away. I'm so sorry. I'm miserable. My marriage is terrible. I don't know what to do." John was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry you're unhappy. Maybe you should talk to your husband. Work things out." "I can't. Darling, dinner is ready." Ada's voice called in the background. "Coming, babe," John called back. Then to Sandra, "I have to go. We eat dinner together as a family. I hope you find happiness, Sandra. I really do. Goodbye." The line went dead. Sandra sat in her dark bedroom and cried. In the background, she could hear nothing. Davis wasn't home. He was out somewhere doing whatever he wanted. She'd traded a man who loved her for a man who tolerated her. She'd traded warmth for coldness. She'd traded happiness for money. And she'd lost everything that mattered. After months of fighting, loneliness, and regret, Sandra made a decision. "I want a divorce," she told Davis. "Finally," Davis said. "I've been waiting for you to say that." Her parents were furious. "You can't get divorced again." "What will people say?" "I don't care what people say," Sandra shouted. "I'm miserable. I'd rather be alone than in this nightmare marriage." Her father threatened to take away her position at the company. "Fine," Sandra said. "Take it." "I resign." She signed the divorce papers, packed her bags, and left. She traveled abroad, trying to find herself, trying to piece together the shattered remains of her life. Meanwhile, John and Ada welcomed their twins, a beautiful boy and girl. John held his babies and looked at his wife, and felt overwhelming gratitude. Every disappointment was a blessing, he told Ada. What do you mean? I was mocked, insulted, treated like dirt, but all of that led me here. To you, to our children, to this life. Ada kissed him softly. I'm glad your ex-wife was foolish enough to let you go. Otherwise, you wouldn't be mine. John laughed. Me too, me too. Years later, Sandra would sometimes see photos of John and Ada in business magazines. Their construction company had become one of the most successful in the country. John had designed award-winning buildings. Ada had expanded their business internationally, and in every photo, they were smiling. Really, truly smiling. Sandra had learned an expensive lesson. You can't measure a person's worth by their bank account. Character, integrity, and love that are worth more than all the money in the world. She'd had a man who would have given her anything, who had literally given her a piece of his body to save her life, and she'd thrown him away like trash. Some mistakes, she realized, you never stop paying for. But John had learned something too, that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the best thing in disguise. Losing Sandra had felt like the end of his world, but it had actually been the beginning of his real life. And as John tucked his twins into bed that night, Ada standing in the doorway smiling, he sent a silent thank you to the universe. Thank you for closed doors, he thought, because they led me to the right one. Thank you for watching. What do you think of this story? Let me know of your thoughts in the comment section below. Until I bring another intriguing story your way again, bye for now.